And a good afternoon, Chris. How the heck are you?
Hey, guys. I'm well. How are you all?
Doing wonderful, thank you. Some big names we have to ask you for with the injury updates. This news is coming in pretty heavy these days, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a long week. Certainly with Evo going down and then Langford behind him, you never want to see anybody get hurt, but two important pieces of our team. And so, I think overall we've gotten relatively good news with their injury reports. And as we've gotten the extensive testing done on both of them, I think we're going to be, we dodged major bullets, but nonetheless, they're both going to miss, at least a couple weeks at a minimum for Nate and, probably longer for Wyatt. So just another opportunity for other guys to step up. It's why we need a deep roster, and I think we have the right guys to do that. And I think we showed that in Kansas City this weekend.
How are things coming along with Max Scherzer?
Max is doing all right. He had a little bit of a setback out of his first rehab outing with some soreness in his thumb. Kind of where it attaches to the wrist, right in that area. And we wanted to let that calm down before sending him back out. We've kept him from picking up a baseball for a couple days as it calms down. And then I think in the next day or so, he'll resume throwing. Our hope is that it will have completely dissipated and then we'll resume his rehab. And, hopeful that he can make maybe 2 more rehab outings and then rejoin the team.
The Chris Young Show brought to you by PlayScore and by Anheuser-Busch. What's your take on how the Wyatt Langford career has gotten underway here? It's sort of an opportunity to evaluate how things went up to his injury.
Yeah, I think what Wyatt did is he performed so well in spring training that I think he really put unfair expectations on himself with how great he did. But I think that, as I've said before, and I said this when Josh Young was called up in September 2 years ago, that all good players go through struggles. And what we want to see is progress. We want to see their ability to handle it. We want to see their ability to show up the next day with a focus, a purpose, and a commitment to improving. And Wyatt has passed those tests. And we know the physical talent is there. We know what he's capable of doing. We all saw what he can do when he's going well. But going through these moments is part of being a big league player. And this is probably the first time in his life where he's struggled to this extent. And by struggling, I consider him to be holding his head above water right now, which is, I think, an admirable thing for a young player, his first go in the big leagues with very little minor league experience. But my expectation is that he continues to get better and better as the season progresses. And at some point, we will see the player that we saw this spring and last year when he signed.
Well, someone who does not seem to be struggling as of late is Jon Gray. CY, what have you seen from him? My goodness, our buddy Jared Sandler put out his last 7 games, 1.5 ERA, but he just seems like he is dialed in.
John's been awesome. He's really picked up our pitching staff. He's stepped up, and yesterday's game I thought was one of the best games he's pitched. I know he gave up a couple runs there, mainly because Bobby Witt doubled and tripled off of him, but John's been such a competitor. And I think what Jon did for us in the playoffs last year, especially the World Series, the game where Max went down and Jon came in and threw 3 scoreless, I think it built some confidence. I can't say you'd have to ask Jon that specifically, but what I'm seeing is a guy who's out there. He's competing. He's making pitch after pitch. He's not getting rattled, and and his stuff is really good. And my hope is that he continues this because when he's on, he's as good as anybody, and he's certainly been on the last, I don't know how many starts, 5 or 6 starts, and then gave us a relief appearance in Atlanta too, which was huge.
Hey, CY, my background, as you know, is in scouting and stuff, and I'm curious with your question. The question I have for you is, we're always looking for younger guys, but here you are with Yates and Robertson. What goes into evaluating the older player and the fit?
Well, you evaluate you evaluate younger players differently than older players. One, because of the experience factor. And when a veteran player has a track record, you're looking really from a medical standpoint, first and foremost, to make sure that they can continue their accustomed level of play, so to speak, that they can continue to perform at a high level. There are no medical issues that may prevent that player from performing up to their potential or capabilities. Obviously, Robertson and Yates have great track records. They've both been extremely successful. And we felt like with both those guys when we signed them that they were in a great spot from a physical standpoint. The stuff is still there. We know they've got the intangibles and the mental side of the game. They've proven that. They've been successful for a long period of time at the big league level. So if you put the physical with the mental, you often get very good players. With younger players, a little more challenging because you recognize the physical talent, but you also know, similar to what Wyatt's going through, that there are going to be bumps in the road, and you're going to need continued development at the big league level for the player to really come into their own and become a real solid major league player. So, I think what you're banking on there is also some of the intangibles in the person. It's less of a sure thing when you have a younger player because you've just never seen them struggle before. But veteran players have struggled. They've been through it. They know what it takes. And as long as they're physically still pretty good and their stuff remains the same, you would expect them to persevere through those trying times.
When it comes to some of those older veteran arms in the bullpen, like a Kirby Yates and a Robertson, do you almost have to protect them a little bit to make sure they make it through the full season, not run out of gas in the marathon that is a 162, or is there no conversation about that? Terrible question.
Well, this is no, it's a great question because this is the give and take of a manager and a general manager. And, Boach's job is to win every day, and he does a great job with that. And my job is to look at the big picture and make sure that I'm providing him with enough alternative options so that we don't have to use our main guys every day to win. And I think, there've been a couple moments this year, I think yesterday even, where Yates had to go 2 innings and then Robertson came in the game for the 10th and we were able to win. And that was what it took to win that game, win that series. But ideally, we're not leaning on them for multiple innings too often or for too many back-to-back outings or 3 out of 4 games. I mean, these guys are veterans. They're important pieces to our team. They're going to hit a spell where they're physically not at their best, and we're going to have to protect them in those moments. So I think the more alternatives and the more good options I can give Boach and Maddox to do their jobs, I think that these guys are masterful in managing a bullpen, and they'll be able to protect Kirby and David.
Rangers GM Chris Young with us here in the GBag Nation. With the Langford injury, he's out. Who are the guys that get the call up, and how does that manifest itself in the lineup?
Well, I think Ezekiel Duran will probably be the recipient of the most opportunity. He was being squeezed a little bit with Wyatt getting regular DH at bats and playing left field, and obviously Josh Smith has played so well versus lefties and righties in lieu of Josh Young. So Zeke is now going to get an opportunity, which is going to be great for him. I think this is exactly what he needs. He needs some runway. He needs the opportunity to get regular at bats and regular playing time. So Zeke will probably benefit the most. We are calling up Jonathan Ornelas today, who's on the roster, middle infielder, who can come up and provide some additional versatility, some defense and base running, bench bat, perhaps here and there if we face a left-handed pitcher. But and we're going to continue to explore both internal and external options for the best way to kind of fill this roster out while Wyatt's down. So, but I think we're excited to see what Zeke can do. He deserves this. He was such a big part of our team last year. And if he can get hot here, he's capable of carrying us for a while.
The Chris Young Show brought to you by PlayScore and Anheuser-Busch. Could we have a trade then, CY?
You tell me. Do we, anybody on the block right now?
I don't know. You just mentioned you're looking at external options. I guess that just means the minors.
Well, waivers, minors. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. Guys have outs. There's a lot of different ways, but it is early in the season. San Diego made a trade and got a very good hitter, but normally it takes a little bit longer for trades to materialize or bigger trades to materialize. But that said, we stay in constant contact with other teams, and it's part of the job.
How tough is this 4 games in 3 days with this built-in doubleheader that you guys have coming up against Oakland?
Yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, and I don't know the exact reasons why it was a scheduled doubleheader. We'd like to avoid those. That said, we do get the off day before we go into Colorado, so it should be a day for our pitchers to regroup before going into a challenging pitching environment. But when you're in the middle of a road trip, doesn't matter who you're playing, and you have 4 games in 3 days, especially with a couple starters down right now, or Evo down right now, and needing a second starter for the doubleheader. It makes it a little challenging, but again, this is a great opportunity. Nobody feels sorry for us. We got to go out and just create our own luck and make the most of it. So, and I think that's what good teams do, and that's what I expect our guys to do.
I don't believe you were with the club when the A's drafted Mason Miller out of Gardner-Webb and what he's been able to do for them coming in. Did you go back and look at his scouting report? And can you tell me something about? I mean, I watched him pitch here late, and it's just like it's just 100 miles every time I look up. He's getting people out, for the A's here, and I'm just like totally impressed with his ability to get people out with his fastball.
It's an electric fastball, so it's not a huge surprise that he's able to get guys out with it because it's a dominant fastball, and it's gotten better since he was drafted. But there's stories like this all over baseball where you really can't put a limit on players and what they're capable of, and so you do the best you can. You think that you're a pretty good scout, but at the end of the day, I always say the players tell us what their ceiling is going to be.
Yeah.
And Mason Miller is unbelievable. It's really fun watching him pitch. My hope is we don't have to watch him in the series, but it is fun watching him. And when he came in and closed that game against us, throwing 104 mile an hour pitches, I mean, it is a special fastball. And so, you hope that guys like him, they continue to stay healthy and they continue to perform at the level that they're capable. But it's a great story. I think it's a great story for any baseball player out there that if you are good, there are scouts everywhere and they will find you. And Mason Miller's no different than anybody in terms of that.
You're the man, CY. Give him hell out there. We'll be pulling for you.
Awesome, guys. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week.